Good morning. We are starting.
Hopping up there. You're good.
Good morning. We're starting the Commission on Police Practices meeting on October 14th, 2023. It is now 10:01. We have a quorum. So I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you for being here and committing your time to the community. Now we will take roll call. Miss McFarland.
Commissioner Aguilar. Commissioner Dees. Commissioner Benitez. Here. Commissioner Bayer.
Here.
Commissioner Hanson. Second Vice Chair
let's try it that way. Go ahead and begin to it.
Hello, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. We're back now in to report out was decided.
Okay, thank you. The commission met in closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54-957 to discuss matters that are confidential on the Penal Code Sections 832.2 through 832.5, Evidence Code Section 1040. The commission discussed cases, provided direction, but there is no formal action to report out of closed session. That will conclude my report.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Next, we will have a presentation by the ACLU on racial profiling in SDPD. Miss, do we have any public comment?
Hello? There's no in-person public comment. Second Assistant Conde, is there any virtual public comment? If you are here to speak virtually, raise your hand.
No,
I
there's
see
nobody.
no attendees virtually. This concludes public comment on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Obeid. Now I would like to introduce our speaker from the ACLU.
Oh.
Yeah, can we continue starting? Well, okay, then you know what? Since we are waiting for our co-presenter, we can move on to the next agenda item and come back to this one. So we have ad hoc committee reports. Do we have any public comment? I'm sorry.
I see there are no in-person public comments, and I see no attendees on our virtual.
Thank you,
This
Ms.
concludes public.
Thank you, Ms. Obi. All right, so we have 15 minutes for ad hoc committee reports. We can start with the bylaws committee, Mr. Maddox.
Thank you, Chair Tran. The ad hoc bylaws committee, we have met twice thus far. Our approach to the process is threefold. So we are in phase 1, which is a first reading with edits. We will then move to a second reading for areas which require particular thought or attention, or areas that we have tabled as a committee. And then our third phase will be the refinement, copy editing, and formatting phase. At this point, we have completed Articles 1 through 4 of the draft bylaws in the edit process, with 5 through 8 remaining. We anticipate completing our first reading phase within 2 more meetings, and then we will meet 2 or 3, if necessary, additional times to complete phases 2 and 3. We do have those 5 additional meetings scheduled on Thursdays at 4, and we anticipate being able to have a draft ready to present to the full commission by Monday, December 4th. Other committees.
Thank you, ad hoc committee. So that way we can, the bylaws are what get us started and move us forward with everything else. Thank you so much for all those committees. Now we have operational ad hoc committee, second vice chair Case.
Commissioner Rubio is the co-chair of that committee, but she's not here today. At our last meeting, we basically forwarded from the cabinet a explanation of our charge, and that is to prepare those operating procedures that are necessary for the commission to begin operations. Specifically, that would include the investigation procedures, the ones relating to discipline, and the ones relating to a case review, as well as some of the legal ones that attached to those such as subpoenas and so forth. And all the other operating procedures, and there's a list of about 20 total, depending upon how you count them, will be referred to permanent committees of the commission once we have bylaws that tell us what those committees are going to be. And so it made it clear that the ad hoc is intended to be short term, and that we're hoping to complete our business by the end of December, so that the commission can vote on sending those operating procedures that I just January, and as and have already one is a work in progress, and I'm working on, and we're still trying to figure out how the new commission is going to do case review. And so after that's more defined, then we'll present that, but hopefully we'll have a document ready by our deadline. And then our other task is to decide who to refer all the others to. Some of them are kind of obvious, but some of them may not be as obvious, and we don't know what the committees are, so we're going to wait until the bylaws committee clarifies that before we decide who to refer it to. And our next meeting, we're going to meet every other week. And our next meeting, we're going to go over the investigation procedures, and our new chief investigator is going to be between now and then reviewing those procedures and to give us in benefit of her insight. And so that'll be the topic of our next meeting.
Thank you, Second Vice Chair Case, and also to Commissioner Rubio for co-chairing that committee. Now we have the training committee update with Chair Hilbert.
There, so we've had 2 meetings so far. One of the things we looked at in the last meeting was the Saints for Justice letter, to make sure some of the recommendations that they had, some concerns that we kind of addressed. A lot of those, I think we felt were more or less already kind of addressed by things we've already done as a commission. One of the other things that we looked at is supplementing the SVPD training with training from outside sources. So for example, if we have STB come in and talk about how they do the training for sports, that we could have a third party outside, non-police department person come in and kind of give their perspective. So we're going to work the things we last meeting. We on certain cases and the policy and procedure. So I had actually proposed that we try to at least get the SVPD part up and running, so at least we know what they're training their officers on. So we know how to look at those policies and procedures when we get the complaints and files. So that's kind of where we are right now. We're looking at meeting, I think, every Monday for probably this next couple of weeks, so we can kind of hammer stuff out. I mean, the intent is we'll bring that back to the full commission for a full meeting. We can kind of discuss what we're thinking about with training, and then have some feedback and dialogue, and then we can hopefully finalize that and at least for our side here, get that set, and then also have future training for new commissioners that come on. Right now we have 4 vacancies. So once they actually get seated by the city council, we'll have to start training them as well. So it's kind of a 2-phase approach. Anything else from other training members? I think that's mostly it.
Thank you, Chair Hilbert. And then the Personnel Committee, first Vice Chair Brown.
Our very excellent committee was charged primarily with the developing a plan for the hiring of the executive director. Because there are personnel issues involved, we will not detail, but we did complete that task yesterday, and we will be presenting it in closed session to the commission ASAP. And we will also utilize that hopefully as a strategy for the hiring of the director, because that is a very important our be done.
Quick question, based on what you know so far, what's the timeline you think on us having a permanent executive director? Ballpark.
We hope to do it by the end of the first quarter.
From time to time, we have resignations from the committee, and We were wondering, if it's possible to have some backup commissioners who could, fill in for folks who resign, have them trained already. And, there's no provision for that in the bylaws. So I was wondering if possibly we could add that in the bylaws.
Yes.
Yeah, the implementation ordinance does say that the commission can nominate the people for that and can help the procedure for that. And so I think that that's one of the procedures that we'll be doing after the first of the year. And we don't know who's going to be referred to yet, but that can include a process for having commissioners vetted and perhaps even trained and ready to give to the city council when vacancies arise.
Thank you. And will you look at adding that, the bylaw? So, where is? Will you let them know that that would be something the commission is interested in? All right, that wraps up our, just take a. Moving on. Police. Sorry, Sylvie, you're doing amazing.
If any individuals in person would like to speak on this item, you may raise your hand and submit a paper. I see no in-person public comments. And I see we have one virtual attendee.
No, it's me.
Nope, okay, I see. We have no public comment on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Obi. Then I would like to introduce our chief investigator, Olga Golu, who you're very excited to have with us. Ms. Golu.
Thank you, Sharon. Can everybody hear me? Okay, great. Good afternoon again. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to introduce myself. I'm just gonna say my name again, Olga Gold, because we're recording to make sure everybody knows who I am. I'm the newly hired chief investigator for the CPP. My background in civilian oversight comes primarily from New York City. I work for the New York City Civilian Complaints Board, which is a long name, but for short, it is CCRB. It's a civilian oversight body of New York City, independent from NYPD, who is also tasked with investigating complaints against police officers. I worked there for nearly 7 years. I started as an investigator, went through different seniority levels as an investigator, and then I became a manager, an investigative manager, and I was supervising a team of 4 to 6 investigators doing investigations for them. While working at RB, we were with allegations of force, including firearms discharges and incidents that resulted in deaths in custody or deaths from police actions. Abuse of authority allegations, which also included false official statements or untruthful statements provided by officers, discourtesy, offensive language, and sexual harassment, sexual misconduct allegations against officers. Among some of the cases that I personally had to investigate or supervise investigators investigate had to do also with cases that stemmed from the 2020 mass protests, which were extremely overwhelming and complex cases that gained extensive media attention, including national media attention, complex cases that involved Fourth Amendment issues, serious force cases, etc. I really liked working there, really liked this line of work. It really allowed me to learn a lot about police practices, about police procedures, local laws, federal laws, and I plan on bringing that expertise here and rely on it here at the CPP. In terms of my educational background, I have a bachelor's degree in political science and international studies from the City College of New York at the City University of New York, and I also have a master's of public administration from Robert F. Wagner Graduate School of Public Service at NYU. I got my graduate degree while I was working full-time. I worked on New York City Township, Largest employee. the last week I've been getting up to speed, getting the lay of the land here. I already met with some cabinet members and have meetings with the rest of the cabinet next week. I also met with the ad hoc operations committee, just like Second Vice Chair Case mentioned, and I'll be working with them on the investigations procedure and maybe on some other procedures potentially. And of course, down the road, I plan to work with everybody in the commission and the executive director Mosley and the rest of the colleagues on other needs of the commission, including looking for investigators, creating training procedures, training them, and of course, investigating cases. Once we get down to that point. And sorry, I forgot to mention, of course, I plan to meet with every single commissioner as well to get to know you better. Thank you.
Any questions for Commissioner Melnick?
So you mentioned, but I'm guessing also on your list is those backlog cases that we wanted reviewed to look for trends and things that the commission might want to know about. Is that?
The motion specifically said to hire an outside investigator for that. So I think that Ms. Golub can help with that, along with Mr. Bennett if he's available. So that she. Great question.
I'm happy to have her.
Next, we have Miss Yasmin Obi, who is our community engagement coordinator and everything else. Ms. Obi, you have 15.
Great, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Yasmin Obi, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator with the Office of the Commission on Police Practices. I will most likely not need the entire time. I'll keep it shorter. I started, for those who don't know, I started in this role about 8 months ago. And my position was the first position that the Commission on Police Practices had a community panel support with the hiring of. So when I was interviewed by several community organizations and representatives, including 2 of our own new commissioners, Commissioner Aziz, as well as Honore, as well as Commissioner Case, who was on my second round of interviews. So that's kind of a little bit about my position. This is the first time that the commission has had this position. And yeah, it's been a good 8 months. So the focus of this position, there's really a lot that goes under my position. I want to give an overview so you all have an idea of what is the type of work that I like, what I can support, what are the my role is to make sure that the work we are doing here at the Commission on Police Practices is known in the community, and that the community's feedback, the community's input is also brought to you all. So I am the person in between that makes sure what we're doing here gets out and what the community has to say comes in. And I do that through several ways that I'll talk more about, but most of them are grouped into communication. So I do that through our social media platforms, and I'll go more in depth about this, through our newsletter, monthly newsletter and email list. And then I also do that in person. So that might be one-on-one conversations, that might be presentations, trainings, workshops that I'm doing out in the community. That might be tabling, where I go and table and make sure that we are present in community affairs, events, etc. And it also includes me attending community events, community gatherings, community forums, etc. So that's another piece of it. I also focus on making sure, a part of my role is making sure that we're hosting community forums. So some of the motion that you all made last week, that would be a lot of that work I can support with, putting together a community forum focused on the different issues that you all want to focus on. Make changes. Part of go a little bit in depth of examples in regards to communication. I started a CPP newsletter in a month after I started my position, and so far sent out a total of 6 issues, with the 7th coming out this week. And again, the goal behind the newsletter was to make sure that the community is receiving the information that we are going over on a monthly basis. So how many complaints are we receiving? How many cases are we closing, etc.? Those are questions that we often receive through email. We often receive through public comment. So making sure that the community has that information was a very critical role behind this newsletter. We've been able to achieve that. In addition, for social media, I, along with my wonderful team of interns, manage 3 different social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Quick plug, if you have not followed us, please follow us at San Diego CPP. We've taken just one example of the work we're doing. We've taken our following on Instagram specifically from 2 people to over 110 people. And it went from 0 posts to over 30 posts. So I think we're doing a fantastic job with social media, and that's something that we're really excited to continue doing. And in total, my team is also in charge of designing the graphics, the flyers, etc. Everything that has to do with. So far, we've used in our newsletter. Finally, increased our community email list by over 100 people. In regards to meetings, I've done several one-on-ones, and in the newsletter for this month, you'll also all be able to put numbers of how many one-on-ones we've completed, how many presentations we've done, how many tabling opportunities, etc. But I've attended several community events and meetings. We go regularly to the Racial Justice Coalition meetings, after the San Diego meeting, CAST, and the Commission on Gang Prevention Intervention. So those are reoccurring meetings that myself and team go to on a regular basis. I've met with several organizations one-on-one when I started my role, as well as throughout the appointment process of the commissioners, to learn more about what is the type of work that the community wants to see the commission do, what is the focus that they want to see when it comes to community engagement, etc. And that is something that I hope to bring to you all in the near future as well. And so far, we've tabled 3 community events, including one we just did yesterday, and we're scheduled to table at another community event, a turkey giveaway in November. And for presentations, we presented, a part of the work we do as a community engagement team is whenever we're attending any meeting, especially if it's a public meeting, we make sure that we stand, introduce ourselves, leave flyers, cards, and give a public comment. Us connect with it. We've about making sure that we are wherever we're present at a public meeting, we announce it and let people know that they can come talk to us, and we have information that we can share with them. And then one additional thing is, one thing that we've created that wasn't present is a community one thing that we've continued to work on, a community outreach list. So the interns and I actually built an outreach list of over 100 community organizations, neighborhood associations in the city of San Diego that work with impacted community members, that work with the communities that you all come from and represent, and we made sure that we we have representation from every single district as well. So when I say we compiled, that means we literally went on their website, we got their contact info, the staff contact info. We made sure that we know who we can distribute the information to, and we've started setting up meetings with them to introduce ourselves as a commission, as staff, ask them for opportunities to come and present to them, come present to their communities, and share more about our meetings and the work that you all are doing with them. And a few additional things, I don't know how I'm doing on time. Okay, so in regards to support with management stuff, I've also supported interview, what is interviewed and selected from and per direction of our interim executive director is for a few months, I became the lead staff on processing invoices, purchasing orders and equipment, and created an HR request because we had a gap in staffing when it came to admin aid. So I stepped in and was taking on that role. In regards to staffing, I also supported by sitting on the committee for the interviewing and selection process for our new admin aid. And I also researched and created the job description for the CCP auditor position. In regards to training, I've created along with the support of my interns, a robust ongoing community component training curriculum, which I presented briefly to the training committee last Monday draft. And I've also supported with, my interns did a fantastic how to file complaint training that we want to present in community setting. And again, a part of my goals in the next couple months is to make sure that I'm able to meet with each of you and we host a community forum and get to know OCPP staff for the community, so they know who the staff are, what each of us are in charge of, and how they can reach us. And I will end with saying one thing that I hope that me and you all can work on is whenever you know there's a community event or there's an opportunity, a space that you are a part of that might be in your regular everyday life or job, if there's an opportunity for myself to come in and present with you maybe, or support, or do the presentation, what is the commission on? Share those opportunities. I would send our newsletter out to people. I would love for you to give us feedback on how we're doing on social media. What is the kind of information that you want to hear from the community? Learn more about what are the kinds of events you want me to start thinking of putting on. So these are the ways that I can really support and would benefit from your support. You all come from very diverse backgrounds and neighborhoods and communities, and I want to make sure that the work we're doing here at the commission is representative of all the communities we come from. And I'm not able to do that on my own, right? I'm just one individual. So you all bring so much experience and knowledge and connections that we can benefit from here at the commission. And I would love to work with you to put things in your own districts, in your own communities, in your own neighborhoods to benefit the larger community. And that concludes my report.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your patience. While we tabled you for a couple times to try to get to cases. Anyone questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Commissioner Larkin.
Oh,
I want to say thank you. Superwoman's got nothing.
Any other comments? Thank you so much, and I agree, and get your bios to her and headshots. Remember, she has a deadline, so thank you. We are going to introduce the ACLU in 1 second. I will be leaving. I have a previous commitment. And these amazing take over. Have any public regarding the ACL presentation? Will be.
Person public comment. And I see no virtual attendees raising their hands. We have no virtual attendees in general. So this concludes public comment for this item. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to now introduce Brandon Stigwa, forgive me if I mispronounce that, and Larice D. Hill. Christy, oh, I'm so sorry. That doesn't look like that. Christy Hill, I apologize. Thank you.
Good afternoon, thanks for having us here today. We're actually here on behalf of the Coalition for Peace and Accountability. Are we good? Yeah. I'm looking, so yeah, I mean, it's hard. Yeah. Good afternoon again. My name is Christy Lovehill. I am the Advocacy Legal Director at the ACLU of San Diego County, and I'm here today with my colleague Brandon Stigwa. We are here today on behalf of the Coalition for Police Accountability and Transparency. Or otherwise known as CPAC, and to talk about racial profiling in the San Diego Police Department. Next slide, thank you. Just a little bit of who is CPAC. CPAC is a coalition of community groups, including civil rights, faith-based law, labor, and others who have been working together to improve police accountability and transparency since 2016. CPAC member organizations represent and support people of color, people experiencing homelessness, people experiencing mental illness, LGBTQ, and people from the LGBTQ community, youth, refugees, immigrants, and others. And hopefully you recognize some of the logos on the screen. If you show folks in the room, that should definitely recognize some of the logos. This broad spectrum of diversity reflects the diversity of San Diegans that have been negatively impacted by thank you. San Diego, this is an opportunity to go about their daily activities free from discrimination, harassment, and intimidation, to be treated fairly and with dignity without regard to race, identity, zip code, or personal matter. This is a fundamental shared value that many of us take for granted, because the likelihood of having a negative encounter with law enforcement is relatively low for some. There we go. And so now the next slide. And this is a value, and you can just click all the way through.
Please touch.
Sorry, what was it? I think we have this, I just want to make sure that you're static.
Hello?
And so that value around everyone having the ability to thrive and with this. And that was the. I'm sorry.
So. So we were talking about. This stuff. Enforcement officer. Not a surprising that racist. In the fact that the way policing operates today is how it was intended to operate from its conception, as a way to police, control, and criminalize the movements of Black people and other groups society attempts to marginalize. It works exactly how it was intended. Policing has been part of this country for a long time, even before the United States of America was established as an independent nation. Informal militia formed to enforce order. These forces were created to control enslaved Black people. These forces were known as slave patrol. Many southern states, these patrols enforced slaves, and later post-civil war Black laws which allowed white people to control almost every aspect of the life. Black codes exploited a loophole in the 13th Amendment to the Constitution to abolish slavery punishment for crime. Black codes criminalized near freedom and mobility, political power, and economic. Black evolved to become what we now know as Jim Crow. Black discrimination in government is why. This legacy of racism lives on in days such as surveillance technology that is placed in communities of color, or laws that disproportionately harm Black and brown communities, some of which we will discuss shortly. Next slide, please. There's like 6 of them.
Okay, I don't know.
Believe that this in San Diego, but too often the things are not Ferguson folks say. But lived experiences of impacted community members tell a different story. Bias policing exists in San Diego. The headlines on this slide provide a glimpse into the lives harmed by bias policing and over-policing occurring in San Diego County. Just to bring up a couple stories. Aaliyah Jenkins was experiencing a drug overdose when she was detained by police in La Jolla. Despite her pleas for help, officers delayed medical attention. Aaliyah fell into a coma and died. During the pandemic, a Black woman walking her dog on the beach was thrown to the ground several times by SDPD. Because dogs were not on the beach, not only did the officers use excessive force, they took her into custody, putting her at risk of exposure to COVID-19. Lastly, Jesse Evans, an unhoused Black man, was approached by officers for public urination. Public bathrooms were largely unavailable at the time due to the pandemic, so he had nowhere to relieve himself. Evans tried to walk away, but officers grabbed him and began punching him in the face, head, and legs. He was booked for resisting arrest and battery of a police officer, but the city attorney declined to officially charge him. It is important to remember that human lives are impacted not just by deadly force, but by needless negative interactions with police that San Diego's marginalized adults and youth and adults experience every day. Next slide. And it goes through to September 2019. Decades of policing system. And this issue has, there are also calls for reform, dramatic increases to the police budgets, yet disparities remain. The timeline provides an overview beginning in 2002 when the first study commissioned by SDPD that came out and found racial disparities in stops and searches. This trend continues today. Report after report, SDSU study in 2016, Campaign Zero report in 2019, media analysis in 2019 and 2020, the CPE report in 2021, and the San Diego Bicycle Coalition report in 2023. While the reports were coming out, recommendations were as well. Recommendations that have largely been ignored. Next slide.
Oh, I pressed the.
During the pandemic, the data kept coming in. In June 2020, KPBS released analysis of SB 1421 records from all local San Diego law enforcement dating back to 2001. It showed that law enforcement was more likely to use lethal force on people of color compared to white people. In July of 2020, NBC7 reports spike in racial profiling complaints to SDPD in 2019, jumping from 8 complaints filed in 2016 to 25 in 2019. And while we were in the pandemic, police were still treating Black people differently, as shown by a Voice of San Diego analysis, which found that between January and 14 all SDPC citations. Black people only make up 6.5% of the city's population. A year later, the Center for Policing Equity study is released. You'll hear more shortly about this study, but a couple of highlights from that study were that more than 200,000 stops were due to an officer's reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. So far more likely than white people to be stopped for equipment violations, traffic, and non-traffic stops. Next slide, please. Okay. Just making sure. As just shared, the last full analysis of SDPD data was done by the Center for Policing Equity. CPE partnered with SDPD in 2019 to examine policing practices and behavior from 2016 to September 2020. Next slide, please. The June 2021 what every other report before it showed. There is a different standard of policing for certain groups, and it cannot be explained with usual police rationale like neighborhood demographics. Next slide, please. The CPE report revealed that Black people were arrested 1.7 times as often as white people. Latino people were arrested 1.2 times as often as white people. Black people were searched SDPD's researcher, CPE, recommended that SDP, including policies and practices that lead to disparities and develop targeted interventions to address racial disparities in each area. It is important to remember that behind the statistics and studies are human lives, San Diegans. Next slide, please. The San Diego County Bus Coalition released a report this year that showed, among other things, that Black people are over 4 times more likely than white people to be stopped for bicycling and walking infractions in San Diego. Black people were over 5 times as likely stopped for jaywalking as white people. It also revealed that the SDPD targets communities of color for bike and pedestrian enforcement data at disproportionately higher rates than white communities. Racial disparities for bike and pedestrian stops exceed disparities for all other stops. So, as it says on the slide, there's literally different experiences happening for people on the ground. Oh, sorry. And then next slide. Low. Okay. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions about the things that we presented today.
You believe the can best use its role and power to hopefully effectuate change with regard to racial profiling in San Diego by the police department?
That's a great question. Thank you. I think the CPP is uniquely positioned, right, to review and look over all the complaints that come across your table, right? And the average San Diegan isn't going to get that opportunity, right? So you all have a very important job to look those reports over, look over all the information and figure out if there are people in our communities doing their job as police officers, but not just doing their job, but doing it correctly, doing it fairly, doing it equitably, doing it hopefully without any bias or persecution leaking in their thinking. Hope that answers your question.
So I have a follow-up. Can you talk a little bit about either the interactions between the coalition and SCPD or anyone in SCPD in terms of the police department's acknowledgement of how they've been addressing these things? Like, can you speak to is there any movement in a positive way on the part of the City Police Department that you're
Coalition is different organizations, right? So we're all doing different kinds of work, touching on these topics and these issues, right? There have been different things that we have advocated for over the years, including things like ethics, right? Which is the reason why all of you are sitting here today, right? So that's just one thing. There have been other ordinances and policies that we pushed over the years with differing levels of success. But in response to our advocacy, the police department has implemented different things to try to address some of the concerns that we go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I'll just add, and so much I said. So to answer this question, the police have not been responsive to changes that CPAT has been pushing or other communities. They have denied that racial profiling exists within their ranks, despite decades of reports showing that it does. They are very resistant to change and fight, as a coalition, we have seen them fight against even the smallest of changes. Beginning with, and this wasn't something that CPAT advocated for, but we supported our community partners that advocated for it, with the racial justice. The department didn't do that. And then the murder in 20, and they were forced to by a moment, but they did not show up to that moment because they were forced to. And it was because of advocacy by the Racial Justice Coalition and others that allowed for that moment to even occur. And talking about what this commission can do, you have an opportunity. This commission was created because community members wanted to see actual accountability happen. So when you are reviewing complaints, you can sustain, you can, I forgot what the other option is, but like when you don't find it sustained. And that is a real that you have to look at the information before you, to really examine it, and to not be seen as a rubber stamp for the police department, which is what previous oversight commissions have been seen as, where there's never a complaint sustained. It's just seen as a rubber stamp. And this commission's scope of work has been broadened under the new charter. And so we hope that not only are you sustaining more complaints, but that you also are using your power as commissioner to identify trends for council members and the public, to identify recommendations that go beyond training. We know that we cannot train our way out of racist policing. As we saw from the data, we don't that commission can take steps to do so. That's the answer. Like, that's the full of your question.
still on? There's nothing in front?
Is that one of the speakers?
It is, but
That was somebody's phone.
I thought it sounded like- Yeah, this one's still on.
It's blinking though, does that mean it's like?
It's blinking up here.
No.
Oh, this
Oh,
one's
it's-
connected.
okay.
What's the ACLU budget and how are you funded?
That's outside the scope of this presentation, unfortunately. And that's probably above my pay grade also, so I don't really know that I can answer that right now.
Mr. Byer.
The findings of the studies you report on the city police department, are those consistent with other law enforcement agencies in the city of county? If you look at the sheriffs, it's the same. If you look at the Mesa PD and National Cities, it's the same.
Might work. You can test it.
Testing?
Thank you.
Sorry.
So the Center for Policing Equity, I'm sorry, yeah, the Center for Policing Equity, that came out in 2021. That was commissioned by the County Police Department and the county sheriff, also UCP. They also found disparities in stock. The Campaign Bureau report from 2019 looked at the sheriff and County Police Department. They found disparities in stock, searches, arrests, and support. There was a report released by Catalyst, California, that's a statewide organization, earlier this year, and looked at a few sheriff's departments, in the state, including Senator Sheriff's Department. Again, disparities in stock, searches, use of force, and, so yeah. And as far as there's also the California Racial and Identity, Advisory Board that oversees implementation of the California State RIPA Act, which mandates that departments collect data, as you all may already be aware, collect demographic data regarding stops for bicycle, pedestrian, and traffic. And that now applies to all cities in California. And so the RIPA Advisory Board releases an annual report every year. To look at and just look how our agencies compare to each other, but also across the state. But disparities are pretty consistent across the state. The degree, can vary across the country. And it just goes back again to this idea that we can't, it's not about a bad people, it's about an institution, right? And that we have to address the institution and how we are doing safety in our community, creating safety in our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this stuff. You are available to be recalled. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you all, and thanks for being here on a Saturday, all day for volunteering the time.
Okay, we will now return to new business, and we'll have a presentation by our outside counsel on the plan for upcoming case review deadlines, and he will be joined by our chief investigator.
Yeah. The mic, on talk about it, actually. I guess that this topic or this item is to discuss going forward in terms of. Correct? Okay, so Commissioner, this is one thing you all. New business, now, we need to put this issue to rest one way or. The admission is. Okay, okay. So Commissioner, you over the last week, in 2 days.
Let's switch them out just for the recording.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, Commissioners, over the last 2 weeks, you've seen 2 different models, or variations of 2 different models of cases. You all need to decide how you want to do cases within the confines of what the standard or the interim guidelines were. I think either method is consistent. The key is how you're going to review these cases. Next month, for November, there are 2 cases that will become due. They're going to be termed out. I'll just call it that. They'll be past the 1 year. Once these cases hit 1 year, you have nothing else to say. So one of the cases that you reviewed last week, the deadline was last Saturday. So you had some comments, you had some divergence of opinions, etc., but that really doesn't matter because the case. And by SD because what they discipline after the 1 year. So this is why I tell you all, we go mum. If we're at the 1 year, we go mum. There should be no discussion at the individual cases. In terms of whether or not these 1 year cases are analyzed or audited for trends and practices, et cetera, that's a different story. Okay, that's something I believe you can do. I just don't think you can individually review these cases once they hit 1 year. Next month, you have 2 cases to deal with, and then in December, there are 5. We don't have a plan, or you don't have a plan right now for how those cases are going to be reviewed, and that needs to be figured out today. Now, I told the cabinet, and I did it, no charge to the commission. I went through one of the November cases. That case is ready to be presented. I could have presented that case today. Olga and I are discussing it, and perhaps Olga will present it at a future time. But that's one case that needs to be heard in November. It's ready to go. There's one additional case that was not ready to go at the time that I looked at it. All the files were not there. I think Olga indicates that those files are there. They're not there. Okay, so sometimes the police department, they're supposed to download all these internal affairs files, et cetera, for these cases that are going to be expired. They did it for one of the cases in November. The other case still is missing files. So we'll have to get back in touch with the PD to make sure those files are in that case, or in the folder. But there needs to be a plan for how those cases are going to be reviewed. Okay. That also. But right now, you ought to figure out how you want to advance these cases. What is the process you want to use? Again, if you as commissioners say, hey, look, I'm interested in case review, I have the time to do it, I have the time to write the memos, or the memo, for example, as you saw Commissioner Case do today, or as I did last week, if that's your thing, perfect. And that's the team approach where you all commissioners can get together, coalesce around the teams, understand the Google Drive, which I just figured out. So I'm no expert on the Google Drive. I've been here a year and a half, and I just figured out when I did those 3 cases, that's when I figured out how to access the Google Drive and to manipulate. Okay, so I'm no expert. But that's one process that you all can do. You have 2 commissioners here, Commissioner Hilbert and Commissioner Case, who've done case review. I don't know if they're still willing to do it, but that's an option for you also. And they can work with you all to learn how to do these cases, if you choose to do so. You have Olga, and I know she has a lot of things to do. You have me, and I have a lot of things to do. So, this is the time for you all to discuss how you want to do it. Now, and the thing I would say is, commissioners, listen, if you choose to do the team approach, or maybe if you choose to do a hybrid or whatever, everybody's gonna buy in. Because this is an approach where, for example, I looked at it from an outsider because I came in lately. I was late to the process that the commission was using. Happened that your commissioners will break for team members, and a lot of and that's appropriate. And if you use that method and people aren't going to do the work, you're going to fall behind. You're going to have the whole backlog of cases. You're going to have people in the community frustrated. And cases aren't going to get heard. So you need to pick an approach that's going to work for you. Okay. So now I think I teed it up, and I think it's up to you all.
Okay, discussion, Commissioner Aziz. Microphone.
Question, previously you told us the way that the county, what is the clerk does case review. Can you just give us each of the options and then a hybrid option? I know you've done it before, but just to get us back up to speed.
Okay. So the clerk approach, which was my recommended approach to the city council, to you all, was an investigative led approach. Now, Olga's here now, so she has to have input on that. But what FERB does is FERB uses the chief investigator and its investigators to go through the cases. Right? These are trained investigators and no internal affairs processors, etc. They will go through the cases and they will present as Commissioner Case did today, or as I did last week. And they'll present the cases, the commissioners can follow along, the commissioners have access to the drive and files, and the commissioners have, access and involved in interactive discussion during the meeting. Present the case, commissioners provide the input, just as you all have done, and move on to the next. Or I was in last week. You're comfortable. The process that we did a variation of the process last week. I took the lead, I did the cases, I met with Commissioner Vice Chair Brown and Vice Chair Case, and we discussed the cases and I presented. Okay, perhaps that's an approach you want to use. So the first approach is just an investigative led approach. Second approach would be a hybrid approach where commissioners marry with an investigator or somebody, to do it. The third approach is what the former CRD did, or the former commission did, where you commissioners are your own team. So it's 3 commissioners or 4 commissioners on a team. You take these cases, you're assigning these cases, you review the cases, you write up, you do the report, and then one of you present the cases. So those are basically the 3 models that I know, and somebody else may have something else to say.
Did I see another hand?
Yeah, I was going to suggest that we continue using the approach we used last week, at least on a temporary basis, to get us through the cases that are in the backlog, utilizing our chief investigator as the primary investigator, but also would be a good opportunity for other commissioners to learn how to do case review. So it's kind of like on-the-job training. And so the light work and report writing would be done by staff, but we also would have volunteers who would present to that. And so I think what we did last really well. And I think in terms of time for the commissioners and is, and for the time being, it can be voluntary for those commissioners who want to participate in a review for the case, can volunteer and be part of it. And they can change from case to case. And so you may do one case that we have 2 commissioners assist on the review of, and another case, another 2 commissioners, depending upon how many commissioners are interested in doing that. So that would be my suggestion, is that we use what we did last time with a hybrid with the preliminary review and the report being written by staff with the input from members of the commission. Primarily Olga, because we have to pay for our council. And so we have a staff personnel that can do it, but presumably if there, Olga is not an attorney, so if there are legal issues that come up, she would consult with the attorney in the process.
Let me let Olga respond to that non-attorney position.
No, I think, I agree with, oh, was there a question or I need to? I am not an executive. It would be. But with the plan, I think it's a great plan, and it would be great if the commissioners could join.
Commissioner Z.
Now, we do keep hearing, budgetary concerns. So is there a way that you guys can report on where we are with the budget? I am an advocate for people that do work. I believe people should be compensated. And if we have the ability to do that, and we know that we're just getting up and running, we don't want to harm the community. So if we need to compensate people to do that, I think we should, and that's without knowing what the budget looks like.
Okay, two answers to that. First of all, the budget for this commission is online. You can look it up. Okay. Okay, secondly, because it is online and because the positions have not been filled, there's an opportunity to utilize those funds, which have to be utilized by the end of the fiscal year, in other ways than are designated. That has to be done internally, but it can be done. Okay.
Not on this item, but just wanna, for the record, say that we have no public comment on this item. There's no attendees in person or virtually. Thank you.
Benitez?
See, this was previously considered by the cabinet because there's already a motion in our. But. Hybrid would be a temporary for now. Is there an idea for how long we would do that? And I just want to be clear about what you're saying, and that is, it's not a team of commissioners. It is not just paid people. It is, and of course, I want to make sure that both you are fully utilized, right? And not overworked, which will be a little rough, I imagine, especially this first year or two. But the idea is to have professionals work with volunteers from the commission, and then the reporting would be done by her, or I guess there would be a decision made at the commission meeting about who would be reporting back on the written report. Is that correct?
Yes, and that answers the first part of your question. Like the intent is to do it on a trial basis, see how it goes. And if it works well, our permanent operating procedure for case review could be exactly that, but we may tweak it based upon what we learn as we go through the process.
Commissioner Aziz, Commissioner Mahmoud.
But I just wanted to clarify that, again, this is for the cases that are expiring in November and December. So specifically for those, we're discussing this approach, because there were other approaches that may not be feasible at this point. The CLRB approach, right? They have a team of investigators. For these specific cases, we only have who we have.
Okay, let me do.
That's expired November 7th. We don't have another meeting before November 7th. So what are we going to do about that?
Yeah, Commissioner, you need to decide this, and can I just suggest that you need to decide, not only, and no disrespect to Commissioner Vice Chair Casey, y'all need to decide the process. What's the process going to be? So, you know, so that you don't have the, so that we don't equivocate back and forth. We do have 2 cases in November, 5 cases in December. They need to be worked. How do you want to work those cases? And can I say one other thing? Because this is just one of my pet peeves. I do not do this job for money. Okay, and so the budget is not an issue. You don't have to worry about the budget. I'm way under the budget that the city council has allocated for your outside legal services. Go look at the budget and see what they allocated and see what I have charged the commission to go here. So the budget is not an issue. Do what you need to do to keep the commission funded, like Commissioner, as you said. I'm not pining for the work because I have plenty of work. So, but you don't need to do what you need to do. You need to get to legal services and you need to pay the state contractor to do whatever you need to do to make sure that you keep the commission functioning and you can get the work done. Okay, don't worry about the money. Money will take care of that.
Commissioner Aziz.
That's the. To have that.
What we're saying, can just,
I just turned this one off completely. This is
but
one
we
that
still
was,
hear the echo.
yeah, but, yeah,
Can
there
we
is
take
static.
a 3-minute recess to figure out what's going on with the microphones?
Thank you.
Chair, you would have to take them.
Oh, sorry.
Real quickly, there is a motion, there will be a motion on this item. And we want to resolve that so that we can move on to the next items. Excuse me. Okay, we'll take a 3-minute recess. Okay, recording is in progress and we're open session again. Okay, are there any other questions, comments? To have a motion, that investigate new cases according to 1-year statutory limitation deadlines with the assistance of outside counsel and experienced commissioners. Okay, that is a motion. Okay, does anyone want to second that motion? Okay, comments? Does anyone else want to comment on her question? Yes. Okay.
Can make a suggestion for everybody on the table, 2 free commissioners. That's just a suggestion.
Okay, I think our constraint there is time obligation. And those who commit need, as was stated here, need to be there along with this. Now, we're gonna have to do, if we're doing this, we're gonna have to do it online sometime. We're gonna have to do it in meetings sometime. As long as we don't go past the Brown law, then we're fine. Okay, so 2 or 3 persons would join with, and we can put that into a final motion if you write that down. Okay, the second was Mark. Okay, so all in favor of this motion? Okay, anyone opposed to the motion? Any abstentions to the motion? Okay, okay, there will be 1 abstention from Commissioner Aziz. Okay, no. Okay, now, I'm trying to get to the point where you guys get your computers. And that's gonna be very exciting. Okay, the motion is passed. I think that there needs to be a correspondence from Olga. You want to talk about?
I think we're discussing that it's best that you reach out to me. And then I can coordinate and potentially break up groups. This way we're in compliance with the Brown Act.
And can I say one thing, Commissioner, there, the correction is something I said you will not be meeting again, or there is no other meeting until November. And Alina corrected me and said that if you choose to meet again, there is an October the 24th reserved date at Skyline Library. Okay.
Okay, and also, just, so that is passed. I should have said this prior, but, next second meeting at quarters and those are not part of the, you encourage to participate in the second group. And we want it, understood that they will be making a presentation about police policies. And it's very important for us to be aware of what their policies are as we make decisions about our cases. Okay. Yes, Commissioner Aziz and then Commissioner Casey.
Hello. Okay, cool. If I have, okay, that's already stopped. Good. If I have requests, where do I, if I have, where in this body, where are we allowed to do that? Like there's some requests I have that I would like us to maybe vote on.
If it's not on our agenda, then we cannot vote on anything that's not on our agenda.
Well, can I, how do I make requests to make sure it gets on the agenda since we don't have open agenda? I guess we do it from the beginning, right?
I would send an email to the chair and interim executive director, Sherman, directly. So one email, have both of them on the email. And
So Commissioner, you can comment. If you have a comment that, you know, or something you'd like to see on the future agenda, we should always become, we should always on every agenda have a placeholder for just general commissioner comment. So if that's not on the agenda, it should be on the agenda. But if you just have a comment or you something in the future, okay, you just can't take.
Sure. Updating, and we can look at what the feasibility of how we update that calendar so that we know it's coming in expiration date. I'd also like precursory review of issues within 72 hours to identify complaints which will need to begin immediate investigation. So that's something I would like us to look at. I say that because this is scaring me. If it's big cases and we wait until the clock has ticked down, and then all of a sudden we have an investigator who's just going off of what I said. And I don't think that's what we're here for. On the ground training for commissioners, as many as we want to assist with, we already voted on that, so that might not work. We want, you already voted on that, based on calendar, we want maybe to look at hiring contractors to help the investigator so that we're not behind the ball on this, but in front of it. I also would like to see a budget with actuals and projection quarterly, if we can, to track expenditures so that we can look at gaps and also look at if it's feasible and how many outside contractors, because she's going to need help when we really dig into this. And then basically we must start working.
Okay. And these, your comments were recorded. And so that, can we send an email with those on? Okay. Commissioner Casey.
A quick point of clarification, next Saturday, we are not meeting as a commission. There's the training about the San Diego Police policies, yes. Okay, awesome. And then there's also on the 24th in the morning, the tour of headquarters for the second group. So if you all decide to meet on the 24th as well in the evening, just naming that there's also the headquarters tour in the morning that day.
Okay, so it's 9:30 next Saturday in Kearney Mesa, your address. Is it 8 a.m.? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, at this point, I believe on my agenda is the distribution of laptops. Okay, you want to start that? All right, if you do not have a laptop, make sure that you are acknowledged and receive one. It's part of it.
You. Quickly, you will need to use your phone so that we can, connect your Okta. It's a multi-factor authentication. So it's one of those like second layer for security, and that's going to be needed for this process. Thank you.
Okay. We'll take a recess until these computers are passed out. Alina.
To go.
Okay,
Is it on? Easier today, I'm so sorry.
okay, everyone. We are at this moment returning to open session, so I would ask that you close your computers for a moment, and we're going to have a presentation from outside counsel Bennett on the AR rules, and then we will end with the completion of your computer work.
Thank you, Commissioner, because you don't need me here while you go through the computer training. So, look, I'm on the agenda to talk a little bit about the AR rules. Now, first of all, let me tell you, the AR rules circumscribe your computer usage. So this discussion is timely. I do not represent the city. Okay, so these are city rules, and this is something that the city IT department, et cetera, would normally go through with you. So I'm no expert with it or in this regard. But in your agenda packet, the AR rules are described, and I have to ask you all, please, to review the AR rules. They're long. So if I had to go through each AR rule, it would take me a long time. Sorry about the static, and I don't have the time to do it. You don't have the time to listen to me. But just keep this in mind, Commissioners. What the city's AR rules indicate is that the computer that you are having is property of the city. All right, this is property of the city. You have is property. What this means is everything on you use it for needs to be city business. It should not be banking business. It shouldn't be personal emails. It should not be downloading photos or videos or non-related city material. you're now in the possession of material of the city. And the city has the right to confiscate the computer, to take and anything that's on it, it's the property of the city. If you were to develop a new patent on this computer, it will be the property of the city. If you're talking to your daughter or your son, et cetera, through email on this computer, it's property of the city, and it arguably becomes a public record. You cannot use the computer for lewd activity and for things that are specified in the AR rules. Can't use it for gambling, for example. Can't use it to go to porn sites. Can't use it to do other things of the sort. So what I'm going to ask you please to do is to review the AR rules, particularly and they're in the agenda packet, they're near the bottom of the agenda. If there's an information security policy, which gives you information in terms of the security procedures of the city for protection of city material. Everything you use again on this computer is city material, all right? So there are procedures there. There are procedures in terms of breaches relative to city material, how the city sets up its network. And it basically says that what you're using this computer for is centralized under the city Department of Internal Affairs. For example, the Department of IT has the authority to provide exceptions to the computer created in the courts and city or third relationship in the city of you take his computer, it's the property of the city. Okay, anything you do, the computer is property of the city. City reserves the right to access and disclose any information in this computer. All right, any information. So it's up to all of you all just to make sure that you take it and recognize that this is property of the city. As such, you need to protect it. It is paid for by the government, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so again, just like I said, it says, for example, under the user policy, users must be responsible in the use of city computer equipment, network services, any actions that may cause interference with city computer systems, exposes the city's computer system to risk of adverse or adversely impacts the work of other employees. Some of this stuff doesn't apply to you because it applies to employees who may be disciplined for abusing the equipment. But everybody, just please read through the policy and you'll see exactly what is required. There is, and I assume Alina or Yasmin has the security, the waiver. There is, okay. So you will, and you get today, when you get this computer, you're gonna have to sign an information security policy acknowledgement form. Okay, that's a form, and read it, please, because again, it goes over what I just said to you in brief form. You must sign that form in order to take the computer, all right? Now, there is also an AR rule that deals with except the computer. To go, can't use it when doing computer. It will be own information, your official information for your review of your police files, for your internal affairs investigations, for your reports, etc. That should be the extent of the usage. If you want to send emails to somebody, if you're accessing your city email and you're communicating on your city email, that's one thing. But if you want to send personal emails to somebody, please don't use this computer. Because the city can navigate and they can see everything you're saying. Please don't use it for your banking or for your personal business. But it is saying under the use, acceptable use policy. All right. And again, that's in your attachment. I just have to indulge you to please read it. I'm not an expert on the city's policy or in the administrative rules, but they basically circumscribe what you're going to be doing on the computer. There is also, Charmaine asked me to discuss with you a conflict of interest in employee conduct policy. Now, all about this policy is essentially what I talked with you about last week, about the need to make sure that all of your work is above board, that we are not partial, that you are fair, that you're acting commensurate with due process, you have no conflict of interest that would compromise your ability to be fair or to be impartial in dealing with the job. Everybody here has to be ethical, which we went through last week. So I kind of, introduced that subject last week. You cannot operate with a conflict of interest. We talked about that last week, etc. So there is a conflict of interest policy that is here. For those of you who have not done so, you're gonna have to fill out, this is not really my job, but under the city's purview, under their ethics code, you have to fill out what's called Form 700. That's online. If you haven't done it, you're gonna have to do that. That's again, a part of the city's conflict of interest. The key with interest commission is that none of us who work in the government service can have these conflicts of interest. Those conflicts of interest may be contractual, they may be financial, and they also may be generally ethical. I don't know if you're looking at the news, but we're having some issues with some of these, or there's a lot of information about certain agencies throughout the city of the county that are dealing with these types of issues now. So conflicts of interest are very, very important. If you have a conflict of interest or anything you think is a conflict of interest, you have an obligation to disclose it, and you may have to recuse yourself. Okay, we talked about that last week. So please look at the conflict of interest policy and administrative guidelines. And I just want to close by talking about, you all know, every employment agency has an equal employment and opportunity policy and procedure. The city has one also. The city's EEO policy is here for you to review. It's very, very important to understand the city does not tolerate discrimination on the basis of any protected class. California expands the category of protected classes that are protected. But you can't discriminate, and you can't, and this is true also, Commissioner, if you deliberate on cases, if you deliberate on the things that are under your scope of jurisdiction, can't discriminate on the basis of ethnicity, can't discriminate on the basis of nationality, sexual orientation, sexual identity, gender identity, nationality, the broad category, disability, can't discriminate. And those attributes decision. That's what the EEO policy says, right? The policy is, I always encourage people to read the EEO policy because you want to know exactly what it says. Nobody here on the commission is subject to discrimination. Nobody here should make any gender, religion, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, sexual identity, familial status. California's protected categories, the protected classifications are much broader than federal classifications. We usually think about federal classifications of discrimination in employment under what we call Title VII, which defines you can't, which says basically you can't discriminate on the basis of race and nationality and religion and gender and disability, etc. Okay, California has broader categories. So anything that you see, anything you come across in your capacity as commissioner, you know, even if you don't like it or you don't like them or you don't like they, we can't use that. Okay, the city doesn't tolerate it, and you shouldn't tolerate it. Whether you're dealing with police cases, where you're dealing with somebody who's involved in a police case, or whether you're dealing with yourself as commissioners. Okay, we're all here. And when we become even over 40, even if you don't think you fit into any classification, once you get over 40, you're in a protected classification, okay? So that's where you are. The city has places where you can report violations or perceived violations of EEO or equal employment opportunities. If you think that you have experienced some form of harassment or discrimination, you can go to the city. There are places for it, and it's city's obligation to make sure. That's the final administrative regulation that's before you. I would encourage you all to please just take some time. They don't take that long to read. Okay, they don't take that long to read. It may seem like a lot, but you need to read through all of these administrative rules. They'll help you with your computer. They'll help you can use for. Understanding conflicts of interest and what we discussed last week is important. I think I covered that pretty well, I hope. And understanding our obligations not to treat anybody. I would say, you know, when people ask me what is discrimination, I deal with a lot of employment matters. I would say it's treating somebody differently just because of who they are. Right? That's not cool. So, we don't do that, and we encourage none of you, I know none of you are gonna do it, but even as you review these cases before you, if you feel some kind of way about somebody you see on the screen, some officer, because of who they are, that's the problem. We can't have it, neither should you, and that's what the city guidelines says, okay? Those are the administrative rules in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from commissioners? Ms. Habib, do we have any public comment?
There are no in-person public comment for anyone who wishes to speak. For anyone joining us virtually, who wishes to speak, please, on AR rules, please go ahead and raise your hand now. Yeah, and if you're joining virtually and would like to speak on AR rules, which is agenda item new business 3, please raise your hand now. I see no public comment. Thank you.
Okay, with no public comments, with no commission questions, I want to ask that we go close our computer. Okay, I have been advised. And I accept with where it comes from, that we adjourn for the day, and then we can get our computer network set up. Thank you very much. I close, it is now 1:49 and our meeting is adjourned.